All right guys, so today we are making an engine harness. What we're gonna be making it for is my Z32 with an SR20 in it. Now, if you guys don't know this car, I had this thing on like a stock style harness. I took a stock harness, I merged it with the Z harness and I made it work. I used a plug and play style SR20 ECU, tuned it, we had a good time. Then I basically got rid of the ECU forever ago, tried to put another one in, had issues with the harness, and now I'm fed up and I wanna try something new. And we're gonna make a harness from scratch for this thing. We're gonna take a standalone ECU with a standalone harness with just flying leads, and we're gonna make it work on our SR20 and our Z32, and it's gonna be a challenge, but I am extremely excited for it. Now, it's gonna be a little technical. I don't wanna make it boring for you guys, but I think you'll enjoy it. And hey, if you don't care about making a harness, at least you could pick up some lingo to impress your friends. So, the ECU we will be running is the Link Monsoon. As you guys know, I am a huge fan of the Link products. We actually just threw this exact same ECU in the Civic, and I'm in love. This is like the perfect balance of price, power, size, everything. You can't beat it. We'll be using this. That just has this one little connector right here, and we're gonna be taking that and making an engine harness off of that. And we're gonna be starting with our, I guess you call it a flying lead harness right here. So it basically has the plug for the ECU and 8 feet of just straight wire. And we're gonna be turning this into something that powers my SR20. So there is so much that we can control with the Link and so much we could do with Link, but we're gonna keep it simple because it's a simple setup. Basically what we need is a crank sensor, a cam sensor, coil packs, injectors, and a coolant temp sensor, and the thing will idle fine. But to make it drive well and make it drive well for a long time, we have to add a couple extra things. For me, I wrote it down. Well, we're gonna need a intake air temperature sensor, a TPS, wideband sensor input, boost controller. We're gonna have the ECU control the fuel pump and the fans, and then we're gonna add a tach output for the cluster on the car. Pretty simple, right?
Not bad.
All right, screw it, we're going full nerd. I'm gonna explain it out, all right? If I mess it up, I'm sorry. This is my first time doing this. Give me some leeway, all right? I'm probably gonna mess up, and I'm gonna tell you what, there's better ways to do all of this stuff, but I'm just doing me, and we're gonna learn together. Sound good?
Sounds great. Learn the Professor Oak's way.
We'll do it that way. So, buy a noob for some noobs. All right, so I guess we'll go right into it. So the first thing is we gotta figure out how to get the sensors into the harness, and the first step to that is defining what the sensors are. Realistically, we have a pile of things defined by 3 terms: analog, digital, or auxiliary. All right, so we'll start with analog. So an analog sensor is something that takes a 5-volt signal and variates it anywhere from 0 to 5 volts. The ECU takes that varying voltage and applies it to something. So we'll take a TPS, right? You'll use that varying voltage to pick position. So say at shut, it is 0.4 volts. As it swings open, the voltage range till it reaches 100% at, let's say, 4 volts. The ECU will then take that, correlate it, and it'll know where the TPS is. That makes sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
Heck yeah, it makes sense. So, so the sensors we're using, that is an analog sensor, is gonna be the coolant temp sensor, the intake air temperature sensor, the TPS, and the wideband. Cool, that's 4 sensors. Boom. All right, and then we have auxiliary outputs and digital inputs. Now, what makes them similar is they both operate on 12 volts versus the analog is 5 volts. So for the auxiliary output, this is something that's basically on and off 12 volts. So something big like relays. You would use this to click on a relay. Like for all case, we'll use it as a fuel pump relay or a fan relay. Boom, that's easy. On top of it being on and off, it can actually pulse it, so like a PWM. So something that will control like a boost solenoid that will actually open and close a valve to allow air to then actuate the wastegate. It's not actually something that's varying, it's just a really fast pulse of on and off. Yeah? Okay, new facts right there. And then if that, on top of that, we'll control our IAC because the IAC works the same where it actually pulses a valve. And then we'll have the tach actually controlled by that too, which is pretty crazy. Then for the digital input, that's something that is like a varying 12 volt, something that you need to have the position of, something like a VVTi solenoid where you need to actually swing the timing of the cam, something that we don't have. So we're actually not going to use any of the digital inputs. Okay.
All right.
There we go. So we're just going to be worried about the auxiliary outputs.
That makes things way easier.
Way easier. Besides that is going to be our trigger for the cam and crank, and then the drivers for the coil packs and the injectors, which are already defined in the harness. So next well, I guess I already did it. I defined where I'm going to put everything, right? So it doesn't really matter which order you put it in. Don't mind my sloppy handwriting. as long as you remember where it is, so when you define it in the ECU, it all lines up, right? So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna mark what all the wires are that I need to use, so when we go to run it in the car, we know what we have to keep track of. All right, we got everything labeled.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's a mess. But this is everything we don't need. So this is a couple of the digital inputs and the canned stuff we're probably not gonna use. And then here's everything else. So I'm probably gonna pin this out of the plug to make it simpler, but I guess it's time that we can kind of start test fitting in the car to figure out the length we need for everything. Yeah, we'll do that step next. All right, we're not gonna need a lot of this, so let's just, I know, it's bad. So we'll do this, we'll go through the firewall. You could definitely use your OEM harness as like a template for lengths, but the OEM harness is super long in here, so I'm not even gonna bother. So we're just gonna do it from scratch. Check it out, my new harness.
Looks like colored spaghetti.
A mess.
That's what I was saying.
We're getting there.
What he said.
All right, we're getting there.
Are you proud of it?
More than I would.
'Cause I wouldn't be. Look at it.
Jesus Christ, guys, it just started.
I didn't say.
Oh, you're not done?
Yeah, all right, whatever.
all right.
So, as you guys saw in the time lapse, I'm kind of running the wires where I know they're gonna want to sit. I have them like zip tied in place, and I'm gonna trim them to the desired length that I want. That sound good?
Honestly,
Yeah.
that was like one of the best sentences I've heard you say all week.
Yeah,
That
you
sounded
didn't.
phenomenal.
You didn't like. Not that you stuttered.
He
but
said
you didn't
desired.
stutter.
Felt good, right?
Dude, do you have like that Grammarly thing that they have ads for?
My friends are sick. I love my friends. But time these fools come back, it'll hopefully be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get
Probably
in
be
here.
back next year, so you got a year to finish.
Pain in the ass.
What he said.
Just get out. Go. I don't need you.
Good luck.
You do need us.
Like, comment, subscribe.
I do need them. I miss those guys.
Love you.
Get out. So this is what we got. This is our entire shape of the engine harness, roughly, all right? So I have everything zip tied in place to really give it some order and to show me where I actually have to tee off of the main harness. This marks where we go through the firewall, so then you guys can see these are all the connectors that actually interface with the chassis, and yeah. So now we have to add some wires into the harness. All of this is basically just the sensor wiring. Now we gotta power the sensors and we have to ground the sensors. Besides the 5-volt stuff, that was already in the harness, so we were pretty lucky. So there's quite a bit of things in the harness that need to be powered. We have the boost controller, the cam angle sensor, we have the idle air control valve, we have the coils, and then we have the injectors. And I mean, we actually still have to power the ECU itself. So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna put a relay in the harness that will then switch on all the power. And we're gonna be using the switch source from our chassis connect right here, because there's actually one from the Z from the factory to turn the factory harness on. So for our source of power, I'm gonna mimic what Wiring Specialties likes to do and actually put a little terminal on the starter for main power source. The relay will then be turned on by the chassis, and then from there we will add power wires into the harness to then power the ECU and all the rest of the sensors. So I guess let's get to cutting and soldering and start running all new wires inside this thing. Check it out from like here back, it's looking pretty legit. So we have our relay wired in. This thing is triggered via a power from the chassis through this plug. This will be a plug that powers into the chassis. Once we get switch power, this thing will be tripped. And what that will do is it'll allow constant power from the starter, which is hooked to the battery. It's gonna go down here, now through the relay. It's gonna turn the ECU on, it's gonna turn the harness on. So we're gonna be running a 14 gauge wire through the entire harness And we're gonna be bridging off of that to then power each individual sensor. Already threw the power for the coil packs right here. We have the 4 trigger wires. I threw a ground in there really quick and we have the power. The reason why they're kind of all one length is because the SR uses a sub harness for the coil pack, so it's gonna be like one plug. And then now we have to move on and continue to power the rest of the sensors. So using this as our main wire or like a main road, we're gonna take some detours on our street and we're gonna power each individual injector right here, because these are all the injectors. We're gonna take a right turn off of this, power the IAC, go down the road, power up the cam angle sensor, go a little bit farther down the street, and then power our boost control solenoid. And that's all it is for the power. So let's do some more cutting, soldering, time lapses, and get these things all powered up. These time lapses are taking so long, the camera keeps dying. There's no fast way to do this, but all the powers are ran and it looks like a harness. Check it out. Not too bad, right? I mean, it's still kind of ugly now, but we have power to the coil packs, each individual injector, to the IAC, and then to the cam angle sensor, and then to the boost solenoid. And that is all the powering for the harness. Now the next part is the grounds, and I kind of cheated on you guys a little bit and I ran the grounds as I did the power. There's already 2 ground wires that are into the harness that you have to ground. I threw a ground on the coils and I threw a ground on the cam angle sensor, and that's the only 2 things that need a ground. And I kind of just put them into one spot, and we're gonna put a ring terminal on it just like this, and we'll end up grounding it to the engine. So that's all for the grounds. And then there is specific grounds. If you guys see the term sensor grounds, and that is a ground that actually goes through the ECU, and the ECU will then clean that ground signal up so the sensors have a better signal. Those were already done in the harness on the 5-volt sensors because they were already in there, which is really convenient. So I really was hoping to make this a little bit more interesting because it's kind of a hard topic to keep interesting, but I've kind of been here alone, just chugging along, just trying to get this done, and it's kind of exhausting, but it is satisfying seeing this all come together. So everything's wired up. Everything is wired up. Now we have to pin everything to the connector, and then we have to loom the whole thing, which is a whole nother thing. I'm gonna shut up. My ass is kicked. I'm going home, and we're gonna pick it back up tomorrow. See you guys then. Alright, I don't know how many days it's been, but we're gonna get back to work on this thing, got some free time. So we have the engine harness, and I did forget to mention one thing, and that is when we were rooting it, you gotta be mindful if you want to loom it. Now this is very important, I probably should have said it 8 minutes ago in the video, but so when you want to loom the harness, you kind of have to group everything up where it comes out of the harness, so you could actually kind of fit the loom in between it. If you're gonna electrical tape it, you could have the wires coming out wherever you want. Doesn't matter, because you're gonna tape it, and electrical tape is fine. If you guys want to tape your harness, you don't really care how it looks too much. I mean, they can still look good taped, but OEM harnesses are taped. Right, RJ?
Yeah, whatever Jimmy just said.
Cool. So, I decided we're gonna loom it. So, I've never fully loomed a harness before, I'm not gonna lie to you. I've only ever kind of loomed like smaller pieces of one where you see it. So this will be a learning experience for me. I'm assuming the best way to do it is to do the little pieces first. So when we do the big stuff, it kind of overlaps the smaller edges. I have my assortment of loom right here and heat shrink. This stuff I got on Amazon. Not proud of it, but it's there. And then the heat shrink, this is honestly from Harbor Freight.
Whoa, what's wrong with Amazon?
Basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna loom all the smaller sections, leave about an inch or so for the pins, so we can pin them, put the connectors in later on, and we'll be good to go. So, heat shrink, loom, heat shrink. Start the time lapse. right, so all of the sensor wires are loomed up, and now all we have to do is the main harness. Now it's a little weird because we have a lot to slip through since I'm going to be trying to come through the front with everything. So we're going to have to tie everything super tight. The loom I have is a little small, so it's going to be tricky, but I think we got this. So the process isn't much different. We just have to be a little crafty with it. So let's try to make this stuff fit around the harness. And there we go, we are all loomed up, and honestly, it actually looks a lot better than I thought it would. This is my first time like fully looming a harness, kind of a pain in the ass. So, if you guys notice, I kind of started from here and worked my way forward and kind of overlapped each layer. And when I did that, it really made it look nice and consistent. Like, doesn't look like there's any weird joints in it at all. It just kind of looks like it blends together, and I'm really, really happy on how it all came out. So if I could offer one piece of advice, that is don't buy cheap loom and cheap heat shrink, because it will make your life a living hell. This stuff is not easy to work with. It frays very easily and it's a pain. And the stuff, it's there to look good, but it's really there to protect the wires. And if you buy something cheap, it's not going to do any protection. It's just going to literally be for looks only. So, man, here it is. I'm happy with myself. I'm proud of myself. We are wired up. We are loomed up. It is time to add the connectors to all our exposed wires, and that I will do another day. All right, day 3, or how many days it's been. So we have our harness. You guys just saw this. Everything's wired in, and now it's time to attach our connectors to the harness. So these are brand new. I got these all at wiringspecialties.com. They're surprisingly affordable, so it's kind of worth it just buying all new ones. If you guys want to save some money, you don't really care, you can always cut them off your old harness and splice them in versus just crimping on new pins and sliding them into the connector. And that's kind of what I mean by pinning. I think I keep using the word pinning. It's probably not the correct term, but that's what I mean. Putting these little pins in right here, slipping into connectors, and we're good to go. So this should be everything we need. There's not too many, but I suck at this part. I honestly am really bad at this, so this might take me a while. So let's start with the injectors and go from there. All right, so it looks like I played it a little close with the wires, but we should have just enough, and we can lock it in just like that. One done, like 12 more to go. So the easy part's done, the injectors. Now it's a little deceiving. You actually need a little bit more wire than I think you'd expect. I left about an inch or so, and it looks like I probably should have left a little bit more. Now the real question is, where do I know where to put the wires? Now, the half-assed question is, well, I looked at the factory harness and I use that as a reference. You could always pull up a factory wiring diagram. That is very easy to do, very easy to follow. And then you could also just look it up online. Especially a lot of these cars, a lot of the older cars, there's so much information online. You can look up exactly the pinout for each connector, and it's very easy to find. So I'm gonna continue on, just doing one connector after another.
James?
Dude, I'm on the second to last connector. Second to last one right here. Cam angle sensor, then the chassis connect, and then I missed the coolant temp for the gauge, and then the fan switch one. I didn't order the right connector, but we can do that in the car, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It'll be in a few days. You can still put it in the car.
Exactly. What do you think, Donald? What do you think?
I think it's great. How do you feel? Definitely tedious. Very tedious.
I feel like very like it's been a long road, but I feel very accomplished, and it's a good feeling. So.
I feel like most people are gonna look at this and be like, "Oh, that didn't take much work or effort," but
It's not that hard. It just takes forever.
it's tedious.
It's so tedious, but it's gonna be worth it,
It
dude.
looks great.
Very-
It's gonna look very good in the.
Very proud of
car.
this one. All right, so I am officially on the last connector, and this is the one connector that will kind of link this harness to the Z32. The only thing I'm having connect to the chassis is the coolant temp sensor for the gauge, a switch power to turn on the ECU and the harness. What else do we got? We have the fuel pump relay, so we can actually utilize the factory fuel pump relay, which is really nice. And then the TAC output. So I have a RPM output on my cluster, because of course that's important. And besides that, I have this one white wire that I'm using to send signal from my wideband sensor into the harness. So we'll put a 1-pin connector on this later on, but unfortunately I don't have that. So this is it. Last one, and this will make it a Z32 specific harness. And if I ever want to put this harness in another car, just gotta change these 4 wires right here. Not too bad. Boom! Check it out, DJ. Come back in here. Come here. Come gas me up a little bit because dude,
You already know.
Dude,
It's so good.
I am so freaking happy about this. Now, we still got to add the little firewall grommet. We could fit it on later on. We got our relay, we got our chassis connect. I need a 1-pin connector for the oxygen sensor. I need a 1-pin connector for the coolant temp and for the fan switch. I'll build it on later on. We can get it in the car and do that later. It's not a big deal. But besides that, it is there. It is a whole. This is my first time building a whole harness from scratch. I feel amazing. I'm super proud of myself.
He's hyped.
I can't gas myself up too much until we find out that it works. But first step to all this is making sure it still fits, because I kind of measured everything in a half-assed way and we moved a lot of stuff around. So let's go plug this thing in, make sure everything fits, and yeah, I'm excited. Sound good?
Give me the camera. You grab that.
Look how nice and simple it is. It's so small.
You can't get a simpler harness than that.
Get in there. Take this tape off. Okay, so I'm gonna take this. So this is the sub harness for the coil packs. What is the deal here? This is not good.
You're not cutting this. You're not cutting. Literally, the first plug.
This should be correct. This should be the right plug. It's all right. That's not a big deal at all. There's like a line in the bottom of the connector that we could just shave off and it'll fit. So now all of this. Okay, here we go. Cam angle sensor. And then this is going to be for my boost controller, which I'm going to put over here. So it's going to have an electronic boost controller. That's going to sit right there. Now another one I forgot to mention is I have an automatic SR20 TPS sensor. I need to convert to a manual one. The difference is the automatic has this crazy like 6-wire thing where the manual one only has 3. So don't mind that for now. Hasn't come in the mail yet. So cool. Okay, first thing, TPS. When I have the correct one, it's supposed to plug in. So this is perfect length right here. This is going to be for my intake air temperature sensor. So that's going to plug in right here. Once I get a titanium bung. Yeah, right here. So that's a perfect length. And yes, I know there's a to-do list. And then right here, we have the coolant temp sensor. Plugs right in. Once I get the single pin, it'll slip right on. Man, I feel like I sound so unprepared right now.
Yeah, you're like this and this. You should have did it in that water.
Okay, and then literally the last thing we have to do is we have our terminals. We have a ground and a power. This will go on our starter, which literally is right there. We'll ground to the block, and then we have our injector wires. So let's make sure the injectors look all nice in here. So injector 1, injector 2. Injector 3. And look at that.
We're good.
Boom.
Beautiful.
So that's it. Everything is good.
Length is good.
Length is good. So for I gotta get the right TPS sensor. I need the 1-pin connectors, and I need to shave down that connector for the coil pack so it plugs in. Besides that,
This is huge.
all the lengths are literally perfect. I couldn't be more excited. I'll tie this up like this, and you'll never know, man. I guess my half-ass technique of just like zip tying kind of worked, so not bad.
Looks great.
All right, so it's a little dark in here, but this is our engine harness now. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this end, put it in the link. We take our vacuum line from our intake manifold, put it on the link for our map reference. That's gonna be our load source. Then we take our chassis connector right here, and then we can plug it in. then we could plug it into the chassis connect on the Z32, which will then let our chassis communicate with our ECU. So if I did everything correctly, we should be able to put a base map on this thing, and we should be able to get it to run. That's the goal. So I'm feeling pretty confident. I'm super excited. Honestly, this came out a lot better than I thought it would. But my ass is whooped, and I think I'm gonna call it on this one. So I think a lot of you guys have been dying to see me actually put together a full startup map. Especially, this is a great example because we're starting from scratch. So I'm gonna say that for next video, and I hope you guys are excited for that. So full wire harness from scratch, first time doing it. It was an interesting experience. I would definitely do it again, but there's no fast way. There's no easy, fast way of doing it. If I had to give any suggestions, it's just do a lot of planning and be confident, because this stuff is a lot simpler than it seems. People just tend to get overwhelmed. So I guess I can't talk too much until we find out this one works. But
It'll be good.
man, thank you guys for watching throughout this whole video. I know it's kind of rushed through just because I was just dying to get this done, and it's just a tedious process. So with that, we're gonna end it till next time. So you guys know the deal. Like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more content. And Donald,
Peace.